My name's Grant Yoder. I was an education volunteer in Tanzania from 2009 until 2012. Well, one of my favorite times when I was there, it was almost every day, was just walking down the hill to my village in the evening time after school, after a hard day of teaching and trying to corral young kids into the classroom. I was just walking down, and the sun was going down, and the temperature was like below 100 degrees, so it was pleasant. And I just remember seeing the sun go down and just being so happy that I was where I was and with the people and my friends in the village. So that's one thing that stuck with me, and I can always picture that walk. Every those 2 kilometers will always stay with me.
My name's Sarah Patterson. I was in Tanzania from 2010 to 2012 in the village of Matabira in the region of Mbeya. Well, my village is a pretty affluent village in the middle of nowhere, which was quite awesome for me because you could always find fresh produce and everything. But it's all because of an awesome rice scheme that's happening there. And it was actually started by an American, I think. Basically a giant irrigation system, but everyone farms rice, which is really bizarre because it's in the middle of nowhere, desert, which is not where you would expect rice to be. But this 3 hours off the paved road village has rice growing out their ears, and it's pretty awesome for all the villagers because they tend to be a little bit more wealthy. They can get more things. Everyone has power tillers and all sorts of things. The other thing my village is known for is their Texas gypsy, what we call, which is gypsy my eye, which is like an egg and French fry omelet. Best in the country. I'm a little bit biased, but it's so good. He puts meat in it and vegetables, and if you ever find yourself in Matabira, I recommend the Texas gypsy.
I'm Kelly Thayer, and I'm with my wife Carolyn, and we are folks from Michigan who went into the Peace Corps from 1996 to 1998 and lived in Tanzania, East Africa. And we lived in the Arusha region and the Babati district in Kijiji Cha Endebeg, so the village of Endebeg, in a rural area where people farmed and gardened and ran cattle and lived in a pretty basic rural way outside without water or electricity. Our project, which was growing trees and helping people on farms and with gardens, we camped out a lot and looked around the village a lot, and we're often invisible. So we got to see how people were living and relating and had nothing to do with us, and that was amazing. And one time when we were camping, we saw a little girl run up a path in this hilly area, and she had a banana leaf, and it was folded, and in it was a little cinder from a fire, and rather than spend a fraction of a penny on some matches, there was so little money, and people were so resourceful that they shared cinders and kept fires going that way and spread it around the village. And I thought that was remarkable.
Yeah, I heard that. That's fascinating.
It was amazing. And, you know, when it came time to leave, one other thing that comes to mind is that Carolyn was such good friends and meant so much to so many people there, especially women, with gardening and just relating, just really falling in love with each other. That one woman who had a baby was really hoping to have a girl so she could name it Carolyn or Carolina, because people really couldn't pronounce Carolyn. And she had a boy and apologized. And still snuck Carolyn in there somewhere, I think, in his name because she wanted to. But it was amazing. The folks were beautiful and strong and uplifting and more resilient than I could hope to be. It was tremendous.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Thayer, and yes, the people there were very special. A few of our friends were Mama Helena and stop crying. Pascalina and Selena. So they were very special to us. We did a lot of gardening with them and their kids, and it was hard to leave. Someday we'll make it back.
Yeah, we'd love to make it back there. Carolyn is very patient and connects deeply with people, and so you were gardening and learning everything else about all the women were doing all the work and men were somehow in charge. That was our perception.
It's a very special place, and it was a great opportunity to go.
Okay. Go for it. We'll give us anything.
So some of the people that we knew in the village were...
The village was?
In the village of Endebeg, Mama Helena and her daughter Helena, Emmanuel and his family, and then Mama Emmanuel, who was the leader of the Pentecostal church, and
she had traveled.
And she had traveled
around
a
parts
lot.
of the world.
Who was very inspirational, her whole family. And then Pascalina, and Selena, a lot of Lenas. And then what was the woman who was in the side village that did the seeds that I don't think her name is.
It's not coming to my mind. But I remember it so in Kijiji Cha Endebeg, in Endebeg Village, the village chairman Ndege, might be Ndege Kwarai, and before him Bwana Quindo, Samson Quindo, who was old at the time, who was a strong village leader who's probably still in some way leading, who knew some English, few words, and was a tall, thin, strong, harsh man, and had a few wives. And like Carolyn said, Pascalina, I think maybe Tluwai, something like that. She and her husband, who was a dedicated and impressive person, they had a relationship that was deep and different than a lot of people, really connected. And then
our good buddies Doho and
Doho and
then there was Emmy Asanga, but
that's our counterpart.
She was a counterpart, and her daughter, or her niece, Anna.
Yeah.
And her daughter, what's our little
Edith Asenga. So Emmy Asenga, who was Chaga, so she was from the Kilimanjaro region, but as a counterpart had set out and ended up in this village and knew a lot about science and plants, and was a strong, independent woman. And then the guy who was the water guy, who was the head of the water, that dude, his name is not immediately coming to me, but he was a cool guy.
Well, who else was in our gardening group?
Oh, and then the big guy, Andrea, I'm thinking is his
Andrea. Name. And then the guy who had never seen asphalt until we took him on the bus. What's his name?
Oh,
we're blowing out the names here.
You can see that guy. Oh my God. Damiano,
yep.
Damiano, we took our gardening group to Horti Tengeru, a seed and farm technical college of sorts outside of Arusha. And some had never been in a bus. Some had never seen pavement. And he was one of them. And he sat in the front seat next to the driver with a big window view. And when the road changed from dirt to pavement, he just turned with as big a smile as a human being could have and looked at us and said, "It's pavement." and we rolled on down the road.
Tarmac.
And we ended up in Arusha and stayed indoors. And I mean, really, the living we were doing in the village, everyone almost lived outside. Everyone slept on the ground. There's no windows or doors. It was wide open. There were wild animals of every stripe. Lions came through. And there we were staying in a hotel, and they all wanted to stay in the same room and save all the money. And just were blown away by, like, why would we be so extravagant as to separate and spend all this cash? Let's accumulate the money, save it. We can cook for ourselves, and then be here with and have some benefit that way too. They were amazing.
Name is Dan Waterman. I was in the Tanzania group, a teaching group from 1965 through the end of '67, and the I lived both in Nasa District, Nyahanga, on Lake Victoria between Mwanza and Musoma, and not that far from the Serengeti, which was nice because we were able to take the students there. And then my second year, a little bit longer than a year, was down in Shinyanga at a commercial college down there. And that was really interesting because we were teaching the kind of the first generation of post-secondary school students, and I had a chance to visit during school breaks. I'd visit them at their homes and get to meet the family and appreciate how difficult it was for these students because no one could really understand what they were learning and how it fit in. Of course, the family had great hopes for them that they would make it big and therefore be an insurance policy for the family. So that was kind of an exciting to feel you're part of it. And then I was able to go back 10 years later, working in the embassy in Dar es Salaam and meet up with many of these students, have a gathering, catch up, find out how their lives are going and how they felt about development in the country and things like that. So it was certainly a benefit to have been a Peace Corps volunteer.
So my name is Sana, right now it's Sana Thomas. My name back then was Sana Poorman. I was in Tanzania in 1964 to 66 as a teacher. Any
memory from back then?
So I lived with Eloise Choi-hee, who is now Eloise Thompson, and the two of us, we were there during the Vietnam War, obviously, and Cho and Lai had just been traveling around the continent talking revolution to the heads of state. Her name was Choi-hee, so people thought that she was Chinese, and they actually thought that we were sort of the great imperialist plot, because I was obviously Caucasian and she was Chinese. Some people thought, why is a Chinese and an American living together? But I remember, one thing I do remember that was one of the stories I love to think back on is that hitchhiking. To get around the country, of course, we had bicycles to go short distances, but if we wanted to go a long distance, we would hitchhike. And come Friday afternoon one time, I was out on the road. It was getting dusk. I had my thumb out, or actually you wave the trucks down, and a big lorry stopped and picked me up, and I jumped in the cab, and this wonderful driver and I just spoke in Swahili and talked all the way to where I wanted to. Part the way to where I wanted to go. He was going to turn and go east to Dar es Salaam, and I wanted to go to Morogoro to meet a friend. And it was midnight when he put me out on the road, and I had no fear, I'm 20-something years old. So I'm out on the road, I'm ready to flag down another truck, and all of a sudden I saw his truck heading off to Dar es Salaam. His brake lights came on, he backed up, and he had said to me in Swahili, "You better get back in the cab with me because not everybody's like I am." And he took me home to his family. His family were Muslim. His wife was Muslim. And they welcomed me right into the house. They let me sleep somewhere I think it was on a dining room bench of some sort they had. And his wife took me in her black buoy, took me to the bus station the next morning and put me safely on the bus. But I just always thought about what a really nice, protective person he was. And years later, when I was getting ready to leave the country, I was on my bicycle going into town because I lived in Korogwe, or outside of Korogwe, and a truck went by and honked and honked and honked, and he waved, and it was the same guy.
My name is Bud Dority. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Tanzania. I taught from 1965 to 68. I taught in an upper primary school for the first 2 years in a village called Lupata, which was in the southern highlands. It was south of Tukuyu. And I found the Peace Corps to be an extraordinary experience. I returned there in 2004 and my friend Wesley and I, Wesley was in the Peace Corps with me, went back to our school, and they knew we were coming, and they had located 3 of our former students and the wife of a former teacher. And it was one of the most emotional experiences I've ever had. I perhaps will go back again at some other point.
Good morning. My name is Bill Johnston. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Tanzania, East Africa, from 1965 to 1967. I was a member of a group called Tanzania 9. We were trained at Syracuse University to be upper primary school teachers. My school was in a village called Vawa in Mbozi district, which is south of Mbeya in the southern highlands region of Tanzania. The story I want to tell is about day one in Vawa. We were exhausted from the long plane ride, and then we spent a few days in Dar, and then we all got on a bus and we're headed for Mbeya. And while we were en route, the bus broke down, and we sat somewhere between Iringa and Dodoma, or west of Iringa, for about 19 hours or so. Finally, we were rescued by Peace Corps with Land Rovers. We went to Mbeya. We had curry at Mama Stead's guest house, and then a day later, off to the school. And I remember waking up the first morning at the school, and I thought, oh my heavens, I'm going to be here for the next 2 years? It was quite a shock. But that morning, a man named Diamond Mwakaboko arrived at our house. He unpacked our food. He cooked breakfast for me and my roommate, Dave Memory. And we walked down to the school. We met the headmaster. We met the other teachers. And it was the start of an experience that was life-changing.